You're listening to Live Wild Radio, the part-time adventure podcast.
Join us as we explore how outdoor adventures build mind, body, and spirit.
Before we get to the show today, we've got our first real partner sponsor, Great Lakes Girya. So Girya is the Russian word for kettlebell. They have kettlebells in stock, which I know is a big issue in a lot of places. Really high quality bells, the Russian hardstyle, that range from as little as 4 kilos up to 96 kilos. Really love the quality. Handles are great. The part that's great is we got you a 5% discount. So if you go to greatlakesgirya.com, if you're here in Canada, or in the United States, it's us.greatlakesgirya.com. And use the promo code LiveWild at checkout. You'll get 5% off. And in addition to kettlebells, they have barbells. They have squat racks. They have dumbbells, maces, weighted clubs, chin-up bars, whole collection of gear. So don't forget, if you want to get in shape, don't count on the gyms. They keep having to close. So set your gym up at home now and save some money on it. Welcome, everybody, to Live Wild Radio, the podcast that can't decide what it is. Because we love adventure things. And that includes, obviously, our camping and rock climbing and backpacking and hiking and all the winter stuff like snowshoeing and winter camping. But in the last year, and this is sort of one of the beneficial side effects of COVID, I got Catharine into mountain biking. And now it's all she wants to do. Yep. So
feel safer.
Although it's funny, with our ride on Saturday, I got more beaten up than in like all of our years of rock climbing together.
Those are minor scratches, though.
Well, they're welted bruises on my shins.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So anybody from Ontario, on Saturday, we went riding in Waterdown. And basically, because if you enter in from behind the Walmart, it's kind of cool because right behind the Walmart, there's just an entrance for the trail.
Yeah. It's an escarpment.
Yeah.
So it's got some great views.
And
fantastic valleys.
Big descents.
And some whoopie-doos, and some jumps and drops and people have built in.
Yeah. Like if you enjoy like jumps and like the Red Bull type stuff, there's a bunch of gap jumps.
Oh, yeah.
On one of the runs.
That was cool to see.
If you fuck it up, you're going to eat shit so hard. And yeah, so that's where we took the kids. They weren't big fans of the first little section.
No, it was a red.
Yeah. Well, because the first section was not.
No, but then it was the rocky terrain.
Yeah, and then it turned into a red trail after that. Because we should have gone down the escarpment right there.
Right.
But I hadn't looked at the descent, and you went, oh, that's too steep to go down. But that's what we came up, and it was fine. If it's easy to ride up,
it's easy to go down.
Yeah, and I had no problem riding up it.
Yeah. Huh.
Right. So going down would have been a joke. So we know for the future.
Yeah, but Hudson doesn't know how to brake properly. So on his new bike, I should say. So they got Diamondbacks. I don't know what his brand is, but it's 20-inch wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's just not entirely used to it yet. So we worked out the kinks.
The kinks?
Mainly yesterday. Yeah.
I suppose, yeah.
Yeah.
He's still having a problem wrapping his head around shifting his gears.
He's getting better at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's funny because Catharine sounds like an old pro, even though she only started mountain biking.
Do I?
Just a hair over a year ago.
Yeah, so for this episode, we thought, because I keep saying, wow, that'd be a good tip. There's all these little things that are aha moments for me that has dramatically improved my riding. And I mean, I guess you see it better than I do, but guess I'm feeling it in my comfort in what we're riding. I have no issue going down blacks anymore. And even reds, like I'll try it.
Yeah.
I probably won't succeed at it, but it doesn't matter.
Well, the going down never is the problem.
That's right.
It's the going up.
Yep.
Yeah. So for those of you who aren't aware, in mountain biking, trails are graded. Like purple is like your crushed stone park path, right? It'll be like a connector trail, that kind of thing. Green is easy. Blue is intermediate. Black is a single black diamond advanced trail. And then red trails are double black diamond, super advanced. And then there's kind of like the occasional like super, super, super advanced. I don't even know what color they are. Like if you use the Trail Forks app, they color code the trail so you know what the difficulty is. It's brilliant. Like I haven't been to water down riding since Trail Forks had come out. Mm-hmm. So anytime we went down, it was just like getting lost.
Yeah, I could see that. There's lots of trails
cross
there.
Trails.
Yeah.
And we didn't even get into the stuff like on the other side of Snake Road and like there's whole networks that keep going.
Yeah.
So, that's sort of our tip number one. Like if you're getting into mountain biking, put the Trail Forks app on your phone.
Yeah.
Or if you get a Garmin bike computer, like the 830 or something like that, or the 1030 or any of the 30s, you can put the Trail Forks app on it. So then on your Garmin bike computer on your handlebars, it will have all these trails shown.
Yeah, but you don't really recommend putting a bike computer on your handlebars, do you? Or I suppose it's one that stays on it screws in on your...
Yeah.
Okay, I was thinking of something you put your phone on, because that will just...
Oh, no. Like they're designed for rugged use.
Got it.
They're waterproof.
How much are they?
Like $500 to $700.
Do you sell them at work?
Yeah.
Ooh, another toy.
Yep. So Trail Forks. Basically, it makes it really easy to figure your way around complex trail networks. You don't get lost because it shows you right where you are using the GPS in your phone or on the...
And it's only dedicated for mountain biking or other...
Yeah, it's just for cycling.
Got it.
Yeah, it's basically from Pink Bike, like the mountain bike website. Just like Mountain Project is from REI, but specifically for climbing.
Yeah.
This is specifically for cycling.
So road cycling, mountain biking.
No, really just mountain biking.
Oh, is it?
It's Trail Forks.
Nice.
There might be road routes and gravel.
Yeah.
But, when you look at it and zoom in on the map, it's all the mountain biking areas that are really shown off.
Is it mainly in North America or elsewhere?
I don't know. I've never looked anywhere other than North America.
That's true.
Yeah. But I would assume.
Yeah.
Because it's,
Yeah.
Why not?
It's a platform people upload their comments, their trails, etc. That's cool. Yeah. That's a very good tip because last thing you want is be in there stuck, not knowing how to get out, and then have a tantrum like my kid did.
Oh, and he knew exactly where to go. He just didn't want to do it.
He's like, "Fuck this!"
and threw his bike down.
And started crying.
Yeah. See, when he's older, he's
going
to
have a meltdown. But you know what? He pulled it together. I told him to go sit in the shade. Gave him some water, some cookies.
Like you're so much more nurturing than I would be. I think I would have made a good drill sergeant.
I don't know if that would have gone over very
but see, when somebody throws their bike,
yeah,
I don't.
That's not cool.
Yeah, I don't have patience for that. Right, your bike is your steed.
It's true.
Right, it got you in there. It's got to get you out.
Yeah.
Right.
So you having a tantrum's not going to do jack shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you still have to go down that hill and then up that next hill. Because Amanda and I had made it to the top of the next hill. Yeah. And it was this open like hydro cut, not the hydro cut in Kitchener, but like down Waterdown. I foolishly, and I should have known better, it was the only green trail marked on the map.
Okay.
Which is easy, right? We should have just stuck to blues.
Yeah.
right? Because the blues
Turned out that green was hard.
Well, it was just shitty.
Yeah, shitty and overgrown and erosion and going up these steep hills with erosion. But his bike's awkward for him. It's still a little heavy and it's hard for him to roll up.
Yeah.
So and he had his shitty shoes on, no treads because it's brand new ones. He didn't want to get dirty, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
So he had a hard time. He was just not happy, and it was fucking hot.
Yeah. And
Is that when we determined that they need camelbacks?
Yeah.
It was hot.
Yeah, so let's go on to another tip, which I would say for anybody is stay hydrated. Perfect segue.
Oh, yeah.
Especially this summer when it was so hot.
Huge.
That's where, especially mountain biking, where depending on the terrain, reaching down and pulling out a water bottle and drinking can be difficult.
Yeah.
That's where camelbacks or any hydration backpack can be highly effective, right? Because you can drink while you ride. You don't have to have your hands off the handlebar. You just stick the bite valve in your mouth from the tube and suck away.
Yeah, and it's like backpacking. If you've got the camelback, you'll properly hydrate yourself on a regular basis versus...
Yeah, because when you're riding, you want to be putting down like in the ballpark of a liter an hour when you're out in the heat.
Yeah. Good to know.
So
it's a good, and you want to make sure you have electrolytes when you're sweating a bunch and it's super hot.
Yeah, because
you should have it. You should carry it with you anyway in case you bonk. And you didn't.
Well, they're not going to give you any energy.
Oh no, it's just for brain function
and muscle function and heart function and
all the important functions.
It just doesn't supply you energy. So.
Which that's another good segue, but we'll get into that in a second. But yeah, electrolytes, definitely, you should carry them on you.
Yeah.
And it's one tablet's good for a liter.
Mil. You've
Listen to Winston, not me.
You've never read the package?
I thought it was a liter.
No.
Oh. I didn't have my glasses.
Yeah, it's 2 per liter. So a 2-liter camelback would be 4 of them.
The kids were complaining they didn't like the taste.
Well, then...
They need to suck it up.
Or find some other option. There's other flavors. It doesn't have to be the Noon tablets.
Right.
You can get energy drinks, Hammer Nutrition's Heed high energy electrolyte drink.
Yeah, there's also tablets.
Yeah,
capsules.
But the kids aren't going to swill down capsules in the middle of a ride.
Oh, right. But we're not just talking about kids. We're talking about everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Capsules are handy, right? The Gatorade, let's talk about that. How useful is that?
I'm not a fan of Gatorade.
Why?
Because the formulation is the same as it was in 1968 when they invented it. They've just made different flavors. So just we'll take a step back. Electrolytes, think of them as the electrical signal carriers of your body, right? So they're nutrients: sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium, zinc, selenium. There's sort of a bunch of them. And when they get depleted, which happens when you sweat, because they're what make your sweat salty. It's not just sodium.
Right.
When they get depleted, then you can run into muscle cramps, your body not basically absorbing fluid properly, just a bunch of different functions within the body. So by anytime you're sweating a lot, you're doing high output activity, putting electrolytes back in will improve your performance. And it's a safety thing, right? Because if all you're doing, and for an hour or two ride, it's not that big of a deal. But people have actually died, because they're drinking just straight water. And so what happens is, because you're sweating the electrolytes out, but all you're doing is replacing it with just straight, water, then the electrolyte in your body get diluted even more. And because they're the carriers of signals, including the pumping of your heart's a muscle, right? So it needs the right signals.
Yeah.
People have died because they end up having, like heart failure or heart attack,
Interesting.
even though they're fit, just because of electrolyte depletion.
Huh.
Right. And that's a very severe.
So in a survival moment, you have no electrolytes, and you get muscle cramps, by the way, and that really sucks.
Yeah, that comes way before the heart attack thing. So.
Sure. But, survival moment, can you just lick the salt off your body?
Yeah, it's just not going to replace that much.
Okay, just
right?
asking. I'm sure somebody's thinking the same thing. So
Yeah.
No.
So that's where like something like Gatorade, like the bottled stuff,
Yeah.
it's just got sodium and potassium in it. And the sodium and potassium aren't in the right ratios.
Okay.
That's where like performance oriented things like the Noon tablets, Electrolytes from Hammer Nutrition. What the hell are they called? There's a company that makes, and it's at the tip of my tongue. We'll include it in the show notes. They make custom energy drinks. That I've had good success racing with, but like I said, like the Hammer Nutrition stuff, I can't speak highly enough of, so there's a number of options out there. And
because is that am I correct that if you run into that depletion, you bonk, or is that more to
that's
do with
energy.
calories? That's energy.
Yeah.
This is just body, like systems.
yes.
Got
So
it.
muscle cramps will be electrolytes and out of shapeness. So you can, they kind of go together.
Okay.
Like you can get muscle cramps because you're doing too much for your fitness level, but you can also be in super shape and get muscle cramps just because you're depleted.
Right.
And that's where I find like getting a bunch of magnesium in your system, boom. Like I've had races, like doing like 8-hour mountain bike races, especially because I used to race them on a single speed mountain bike. So it's very muscular because you don't have an easier gear to switch into.
Right.
And my quads or my hamstrings would cramp on me. And I would down like 4 or 5 electrolyte capsules.
Yeah.
5 minutes later, they're gone.
Really?
Yeah, it was pretty magical. Pretty horrid when it was happening. But how quickly it fixes it,
Right.
is quite magical.
Okay.
And
So again, minimum requirements for taking electrolytes is what things like heat, temperature,
and how
duration.
much you sweat. Yeah,
Sweat.
like
It all comes down to sweat. How
yeah,
much
like
you're
and
really
I
sweating.
would say if you're doing events or rides that are relatively strenuous and over an hour.
Got it. That's
or
good.
an hour and a half.
Perfect.
Then getting some electrolytes is a good idea.
It's almost like a part of a safety kit.
Yeah.
Really.
And you can have some gels like the goo gels, or hammer gels. They also have electrolytes in them. So there's different ways of getting them in.
So let's continue on that segue about nutrition.
Yeah.
Since we've already kind of touched on it a little bit. I know for me, how much you eat before you go and what you eat. So let's talk a bit about the what. So you want energy.
Yeah.
So that's carbs.
Well, carbs, fat, and protein. Right? If it's just carbs, then your blood sugar will spike and crash. Right? But if you've had a breakfast that's kind of balanced,
Yeah.
then your body absorbs it slower. So then you have energy longer. Right? Because you don't get the big insulin spike that causes your blood sugar to crash.
So say you're going to go after breakfast. What's a good breakfast?
I'm a big fan of, if we're going immediately afterwards,
Yeah.
like a bagel with peanut butter. There's some carbs, fat, and protein.
Yeah, because we were looking at we were comparing the carbs in a piece of 2 slices of bread. It was pretty high. It was like 35 grams just for the bread.
Yeah, but it also will
plus
give
the
you
peanut butter.
It'll give you like maybe 6 grams of fat, and 5 or 6 grams of protein.
Right.
Then you add in the few grams of protein and a few grams of fat from the peanut butter. Now you're it's not balanced in the sense of like percentages.
Right.
But when you have some protein and fat with your carbs, especially complex carbs, like say a whole wheat bread or an oatmeal, they take a little longer for your body to break down, right? So they don't all hit your bloodstream at once.
Right.
So you have more of a sustained energy, right? And then if you're going to be riding longer than an hour and a half, you know, then getting some calories in while you're on the bike really will make a difference.
Right. So that's when you bring the granola bars. Energy gels, whatever.
Yeah, like a lot of it depends whether you're going to stop and eat or you're eating on the go, right? So I tend to like, I abhor stopping. You know, everybody wants to take breaks. It's like, I'm here to ride my bike, not, if I want to sit, I'll go home. So, you know, for me, it's one of those things. I want stuff that I can put down on the bike,
right?
That I can access one-handed, right? So that's why, like, a cycling jersey with the pockets in the back is nice.
That's what they're for.
Yeah, I can reach back, grab my snack.
Yeah.
I don't want stuff I have to unwrap that's too complicated.
Right.
And so that's where maybe I'll have like a peanut butter sandwich, just in a Ziploc bag that's easily accessible. Because if you get a little bit of easy terrain, you know, if you're on a long ride, you know, section cutting through a field or, you know, that is non-technical.
Right.
Gels are great. I'm a big fan of Hammer Nutrition's gels because you can get them in a bulk bottle. So instead of the individual packets, then you end up with these sticky packets stuffed in your pocket because you don't want to leave any garbage. Because the Hammer gel comes in a like 30 serving bulk container.
neat. Yeah.
And then you have basically these little flasks. They call them gel flasks.
Okay.
So you can put like 4 servings in one of those and then dilute it with water. Because I find the gel's a little too thick as far as like dispensing it.
Yeah.
And think of the gel flask as like a miniature water bottle, right? It's got like the same kind of pop top that a bike bottle would have.
Okay.
So you just pull it up with your teeth and give it a squeeze and boom, you got energy.
How long does it take to actually feel the effects of it?
15 minutes. Right. So I was always a big fan because, you know, I can put like 4, depending on the size of the flask, like 4 or 6 servings in the flask. I dilute it with a little bit of water so it dispenses easier, right? Because you don't want like a whole or half of a serving just left stuck to the inside of the
that
thing.
would suck. Be struggling with that. Yeah.
So by diluting it a little bit, it just makes it easier to swallow.
Yeah.
The flavors are really good. Like their apple cinnamon tastes like apple pie or, you know, like they've got a lot of good flavors.
Yeah.
And, you know, 2 of those little bottles is like having a dozen like packaged gels in your pocket.
Oh, really?
Right. Because
you can go far.
Yeah.
How long do those, like, so taking a serving of those gels, how long will that last you, energy-wise?
They're usually about 100 calories. So depending on your intensity level, you know, somewhere in the ballpark of 15 minutes.
Okay.
You know.
Is it calorie for calorie? So whatever you take in and you expend, you got to replace, you got to add more calories?
Well, if you're going long enough.
Yeah.
Right?
So
like,
say you are.
If you are, then now here's the thing you run into with long duration stuff, and by that I'm talking like over 4 hours at a fast pace, right? Not like the ride we did with the kids the other day that was technically 4 hours, but
it's nothing.
It had too many breaks.
Yeah.
So what we'll run into with that is a case of you're limited by how many calories per hour your stomach can process while you're exercising. So if you're going pretty hard, you might be burning 600 to 800 calories an hour. But your stomach might be only able to process 400.
Interesting.
Right. So, and that's where Really long duration events, you're burning a chunk of body fat,
Yeah.
right? Your body's going to tap into fat as a fuel source.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of muscle breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
That's why a lot of
Cyclist dope.
Pardon?
Sorry.
But some of the modern or higher performance, like endurance drinks,
Right.
will have some branched chain amino acids, because about 10% of your energy is going to come from protein, and it's those specific amino acids. So having them put in to what you're eating and drinking is going to translate into less muscle breakdown, right? So you recover quicker from the big event. So if you're sort of doing racing type stuff, then the high tech food, like the energy drinks, the energy gels, the chews, all that kind of stuff. But otherwise, if you don't mind stopping and eating, peanut butter sandwiches, bananas, granola bars, all that kind of stuff where it's not just pure carbs.
Yeah. So I'm on the keto diet and we usually go in the morning. Mm-hmm. So traditionally I fast intermittently. I do have a coffee in the morning with cream, whatever. So it's got cream. But that's my drink in the morning. But then I take a protein shake. Mm-hmm. I double up on my protein shake. So that means I'm getting in, how many carbs?
It's 23 per shake. So 50 or 46 grams.
Okay. Something like that. Plus protein. Not a lot.
Well, there's actually, no, sorry.
Calories is about 170 a scoop.
Yeah.
So it's quite a bit. And I take it with almond milk, whatever. But my point is that for our 2 to 3 hour rides plus a granola bar,
yeah,
I'm good. And you don't want to make the mistake of having, what I did a couple times, 2 servings of protein shake. And then I went and got, even if it was just like a little English, like a breakfast muffin.
Yeah.
And you're feeling good, but then on the ride, you got like a brick in your stomach.
Yeah.
Yeah, you feel so gross. So you don't want to overeat at all.
No.
At all. You don't want
light, easily digestible food.
Yeah, yeah. Consider taking more food with you on the ride versus eating it before you go.
Mm-hmm.
Huge for performance, I think.
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the thing is, you don't want to do intense activity with a full stomach, right? Like that's why it's always recommended to eat an hour or 2 before a race. Any of that kind of stuff where you're going to be going balls out.
Yeah.
Because otherwise your muscles and your stomach are competing for blood. And what happens is often you throw up because your stomach loses. So it says jettison and it's miserable.
Interesting. Yeah. So those are some, I know we went down the rabbit hole on that, but that's pretty interesting and important. Mm-hmm. So my story, for those who don't know, is that I just started mountain biking last year, 2 months after I broke my elbow. So that was interesting. Actually, it was really good rehab, I think, because when I was road cycling, being in that static arm position was hard on my elbow, but mountain biking was really good. Mm-hmm. But I think what a lot of people might face is a bit of a hesitation or fear of crashing, because it's a thing. It can happen. So I think what's key is obviously there's skills, and we've talked about it in our last episode. But overall, you want to get comfortable with the bike. And there are times where I didn't really go on rides. I just went and I did go on a ride, but it wasn't about how fast I could go and how far I could go. It was just about, let's just practice these tight corners today. Mm-hmm. And truthfully, I found even when I went on my own, because I wondered how much benefit I would get out of it, cycling on my own, because what do I know? Just the act of practicing, I saw improvement. Mm-hmm. And so did you.
Yeah.
So definitely worthwhile going, even if you go on your own, just to get more comfortable with the bike. Because I think that's the first hurdle that a lot of cyclists, I'm going to guess, are trying to figure out is, how much of a death grip do they need on the handlebars, which you need none. But at the first, when you're first doing it, you're hesitant, right? You're scared. So, and your hands are always probably right on the brakes, whatever. So, letting the bike do its thing, letting your upper body and your elbows relax, right? So you're not like looking like Frankenstein and expending energy. Feeling more comfortable about how your bike rolls down hills and what you can do. And you're not going to go fast to start. You're going to just go inch by inch until you're comfortable. And I found that immensely helpful. And what I also thought was interesting was when we were in Holton Falls, I think, on the rock terrain. So it's all like granite rock.
Oh, limestone, but who's counting?
Limestone, right. Because if it was granite, it'd be easier. Limestone, slippery. But as much as I couldn't do it, it's always worthwhile trying hard trails, even if you're walking a lot of it, because you pick up on skills. That's actually when I learned that, is it 26-inch tire? Is that what
29.
29. Oh, there you go. My 29-inch tire can go over these rocks, because often I would try and go around the rocks, and I never liked going over them, even if they were like solidly planted in the ground. So I discovered that. I'm like, okay. So, but just because I was faced with so many rocks to begin with, I couldn't avoid them. So that was a really good aha moment. And I also learned either on that ride, like basically in the next season. So it was like 8 months later. So I'm trying to save you some time here. That the most important thing to watch for when you're thinking about your wheels and rocks and obstacles is just keep focused on what your front wheel can go over. Your rear wheel will always follow.
Yeah, as long as you got a little bit of momentum.
Sure.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's your front wheel.
Yeah.
Because in the past, I used to try and navigate my front and my rear.
Yeah, you can't see what your rear's doing anyway.
No, but if I was going between rocks, if I was doing that, I do my front, but I'd also be thinking about, and I'd slow the heck down, because I wasn't sure if my rear wheel could do it.
Yeah.
When it wasn't necessary.
Yeah, like if you can get your front wheel over it and you've got a little bit of momentum, you'll go through.
The only thing is that you may skid sometimes, especially over roots, right? If you hit it
on an angle.
Yeah,
but
otherwise that's fine. Like
yeah. Because this is the thing you'll always run into is if you just pay attention to what your front wheel does, because if your front wheel slips, you could be on your face. If your rear wheel slips, you correct for it. Right? So it's always just focusing on the front wheel.
That's right.
Get it over stuff, the rear will follow. Weight your front wheel going through a corner. If the rear slips a little, it doesn't matter, because you can always correct, like unless it's like a complete washout, which doesn't really happen. It's why one of the tricks I do often in my bike setups is put a wider, more aggressive tire on the front. Right? So you're pretty much guaranteeing when you're going around a corner, the rear will always slip before the front does. And that, one of the little, we'll call it like technical tricks you can do when you're getting into mountain biking, is whatever tires your bike came with. Because if you're starting with like a intermediate kind of recreational mountain bike, they're not going to have like the best tires in the world. Fitting, the fattest, most aggressive tires you can fit into your frame and your fork. Obviously, because those tires will tend to be a little bit heavier and more drag, it'll be physically a bit more effort, but it gives you more grip. And it's one of the things I've always found is like, if you're in terrain that's a little bit sketchy, loose rocks, gravel, roots, that kind of thing. If you got more bite to your tires, you can more confidently ride through things. If your tires are like a lightweight, fast rolling tire, great for the cross-country racer who's already experienced, but they can be sketchy.
Yeah. And that includes, muddy terrain and water, and which we normally don't ride on because trails are usually closed. But some places, after a big storm, like you'll see in the deep valleys, rain, puddles and stuff. So you'll notice that.
Oh, we even ran into it riding in London yesterday.
Yeah.
Right.
Lots of it. Yeah.
Because there were stream crossings.
Yeah.
Right. Like that. The trail actually went through streams.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like you're going to wreck the trail.
Yeah.
Because they were just specifically set up that there's a spot where you got to go right through the river.
Yeah.
So meaty, more aggressive tires would be one of my tips for people. Things like, the Minions from Maxxis tires. They're like super beefy and grippy. Because unless you're a cross-country racer where every little ounce and every little bit of rolling drag counts, and if you are, this probably isn't the podcast for you anyway. But unless you're a racer where that speed matters, can be placings. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of like meaty, aggressive tires. Mm-hmm. Even if you're on a fast section of trail, it's like, you burn a few more calories riding it, right? For any of us that are riding for fitness, then, hey, cool. You made it a little more physically challenging, like exercise-wise. But when you hit that steep downhill that you didn't know was coming, or some roots or whatever, you ride through that shit.
Yeah. And you get different terrain, right? You might have sandy terrain or
roots, rocks.
It could even be that you get off the trail a little bit, and sometimes the trail is a lot more slippery than you think it is. Like it's not. It's just very loose, right? It's not as packed like the trail is, so that can really help you out. Yeah, I'll probably get an aggressive tire for my front because I'm noticing it now in some of the terrain that we've been on lately that I could use it. But another interesting thing that I learned, I'm like, why is my bike squeaking? I swore I should have taken a video of it because I'm not the only one. Basically, my chain was dry. Remember that?
Yeah.
And of course, you're shaking your head, and you're like, Catharine, you should be lubing your chain every week. But it's not even that. Basically, you run your finger on the top of the chain, and if nothing's coming off of it, it's time to lube it.
Yeah, that's a quick check.
Yeah.
And if something is coming off and then you rub it between your two fingers and it's gritty, then it needs to be cleaned because that grit will wear your shit out. Right? Like it literally, like sand and dust mixed with chain lube make grinding paste. Right? So most people and the bike industry is happy with this. Because it means they sell more chains, more cassettes, more chain rings. Shops get more labor charges. Like your drivetrains would last, and that's your cogs and your chain and all the parts on it. Would probably last like twice as long if you kept your shit clean. So if if you're like a deep pockets, Bitcoin investor, you made that big money. Hey, fine. You don't care, right? You're just going to pay to replace your stuff. But COVID has made it so getting parts has been
to you.
Yeah. It took me forever to get a new chain. And I do keep my drivetrain clean.
Right.
It's just, with modern drivetrains, like 11 and 12 speed drivetrains, chains are skinnier. So they wear out quicker.
Right.
So it's one of those things of like, if people are looking for some good budget, but high performance, look at like Microshift Advent X. It's like a 10 speed. It's like a derailleur, a shifter, and a rear cassette. that's like, you should be able to get the combo for like less than 200 Canadian. You'll use whatever crank you want with it. But it's an 11 to 48 and it weighs less than Shimano XT and it's less than $200 for all the pieces. And it works. Mm-hmm. Right. So, down the road when your drivetrain's dead.
And talk about the performance of what that means, those extra.
Yeah. Cause right now your drivetrain, a lot of mountain bikes nowadays only run one ring up front. Mm-hmm. And it's brilliant because it used to be to have a wide enough gear range, you had to have 3 rings up front. Mm. And then you'd have 7, 8, 9 speeds in the back. Mm-hmm. Well, now that they've gone like 11 and now 12 speed on the back, mm-hmm. They've been able to make the gear ranges wide enough that you only need a single ring up front. Mm-hmm. So now you've saved some weight because you get rid of the left shifter, you get rid of the front derailleur, you get rid of 2 chain rings. So that saves weight. But the other thing is now your shifting is up, 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 down, 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 up, up. There's none of the a hill's coming up, so you got to shift down to the small ring on the front, shift a gear or 2 harder in the back, so you weren't spinning.
Yeah.
No, it's just up, 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 up until you run out of gears. And the same thing in the other direction. With the bikes that we got, they had an 11 to 42, 11 speed on the back, with a 30-tooth ring up front. And that's fine for most of the stuff we run into around here. Mm-hmm. But the really steep motherfucker hills, it's not quite low enough.
Low mean, you can make easy. Yeah.
And the new 12-speed systems actually it'll still run a similar ring up front, like a 30 or 32 tooth ring up front mm-hmm. on the crank. But in the back now, they're running 10 to 50 or 10 to 51. Right? So it's like 8 or 9 teeth easier.
Yeah, you've basically gained a couple more gears.
Yeah.
In either direction?
You get one harder, like it goes from an 11 tooth to a 10 tooth for the hard gear.
Yeah.
But it goes from 42, which is what you have right now, up to a 50. So it's 8 teeth easier.
Got it.
And I've got a new cassette on my bike. I actually went and to replace the 42 that I had on there, I went up to a 46.
So when you're saying the teeth, you're actually talking about the teeth on the cassette.
Yes, the more teeth it is, the bigger the ring is.
And the easier it is to pedal.
Because all it is just changing the size of the gear.
Got it.
Right? So on bicycles, on the rear, the bigger it is, the easier it is. On the front, the smaller it is. Or, the bigger it is, the harder it is. So it's finding those like sweet gear ratios that work for the area you're in. Mm-hmm.
And you found that since you put in this new cassette kit, whatever, it's been easier for you because now you've gained. Well,
I've got one gear easier than you do.
Yeah.
Like 14.
And that helped you get up some hills that you didn't think you could otherwise.
Well, because they're super steep, right? So you can spin.
Yeah.
The combination of easier gears and clipless pedals. Right? Because I can move my feet faster than you can without my feet coming off the pedals.
Let's talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
The pedals, the clipless pedals, because I don't do that.
No.
And so some people, again, fear, like, I don't want to, crash into a tree. I don't want to be worrying now about my feet not coming out off my bike. So when do you, and I have to admit, the question is, when do you, switch over?
Whenever you want.
And I have experienced a few times my feet slipping off, right? As you're doing something, or you adjust your feet and you're like, for whatever reason, you adjust your feet on the pedals and it's not quite in the position you want it to be, but you don't want to fuck around with that because you're going downhill, whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now I've been riding clipless pedals since the early 90s.
Yeah.
So regular pedals just feel like gack to me. Now, I'm not a big jump guy. Like if I was doing the Red Bull Rampage or anything like that, obviously you're not doing backflips and putting your feet back in your clipless pedals. Mm-hmm. So any of that type of riding, downhilling, that type of thing tends to be. Some guys will use clipless, but a lot of them are using flats, which are just platform pedals with lots of grip. But I find with clipless, I have more control over my bike. If I do want to get my rear end over something, I just jump and the whole bike comes with me, right? Because you're attached to it.
Okay.
Getting your feet out is easy. You just twist your ankle a little bit like you're squishing a bug or putting out a cigarette butt. So I don't find it hard to get out of. And yeah, like it's just...
And you can adjust how easy it is like you could on a ski boot.
With some.
Can you?
The ones that I run, you can't.
Oh, okay.
But they've got like lots of flow. They're like I don't get stuck. So...
Well, I have them on my hybrid.
Yeah.
And I know that at times I feel like I'm struggling to get my foot out when I use them.
Well, it's because you're not twisting your ankle.
Yeah. So you got to get used to it.
Pull your foot out.
It definitely is practice.
Yeah.
And maybe it's something you'd rather do riding on gravel versus, although you don't want to fall, or on pavement, you don't want to be falling on pavement because that sucks.
No, but the thing is like...
you don't fall unless you're going slow, and that's usually what happens.
Yeah, like I don't know, and maybe it's just I've been riding them for so long.
Yeah.
But like how people come to a dead stop and forget they were clipped in, like that's the only way you fall over.
Yeah, that's happened to me recently this year because I forgot because it was my first time using them.
Yeah,
and I had forgotten. I'm like, oh yeah, this foot's clipped in. This one's not. Why did I not?
Like I always pop the one foot out. Like when I'm coasting up to a stop sign.
Yeah. I
pop one foot out. 10 meters before I get to the stop sign.
Yeah. But you also talked about how the other advantage of clipless pedals is that you now have the power of pulling up.
Yeah.
And spinning. Talk about that.
Well, basically spinning is pedaling an easier gear with a fast pace, like your feet are moving quickly, a high cadence.
And I guess a good way to practice that, well, aside from just doing it when you're mountain biking, but is maybe on your trainer? Because I've never indoors. I'm just thinking.
But you can just do it anytime you're riding.
Or anytime when you're riding.
Just go a gear easier than you feel you need to be in and pedal faster.
Yeah.
You very quickly get smooth at it.
So how much more speed or, pedaling would you get?
Well, so you can go like about 20 RPMs faster and still have your feet on the pedals than you can. Like when you're using flats, you tend to mash the pedals more.
Okay.
Right? Because that's all you got. Like you can't pull up. Like if you pull up, your foot's coming off the pedal.
Right.
So having, basically when you're not using clipless pedals, you're not clicked in. You tend to run a gear or two harder and you mush it. It's more leg pressing your way everywhere.
Right.
Whereas when you're running clipless pedals, you have now more tools in your toolbox. Because I can go a light gear quick and it's more load on the cardiovascular system, but less load on the muscles.
Right.
I can muscle it.
Yeah.
And I can do everything in between. Right. Because you can picture if you're riding up a hill, like a steep, loose hill, being in a little bit easier gear and spinning smoothly so that there's even power going to the rear wheel, you're more likely to make it up that hill. If you're like mashing, so it's pulsing the power to the rear wheel, you're more likely to have that rear wheel break loose and you lose all your momentum.
Makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes
sense.
That for me.
And I guess the silver lining here is that, and if you do fall, you're falling on dirt. And if anybody's done that, you realize, oh, it wasn't so bad.
Yeah. Like,
I think that's the fear that most people have, or I'd have.
Well, and I guess it's sort of like anything. Practice it in a non like when it doesn't count to the point that you don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That on a regular pedal, like train yourself. Like if you're on platform pedals, when you're gonna get your foot off, you twist it. right? Because then you have that same motion no matter what type of pedal you're getting off.
Right.
And then it's just whatever pedal you're on, you'll always get your foot off properly. Right? And you always want whatever foot you want to unclip, you want that leg straight. It's much easier to twist your heel out to pop out of it when your leg is straight than if your leg is bent at the top of the pedal stroke. You have no leverage.
Okay. I'm trying to think of what other tips, anything that you recall that I've said to you.
Well, learning how to pop your handlebars over obstacles.
Yeah. And so what I liked doing with you is rather than on the trail is start in a parking lot.
Yeah, put a stick down. Like if you want to learn how to get over a log, up a rock step, over roots, any of that kind of thing. Like the kind of thing that if you didn't get your front wheel up, if you ran straight into it, it'd probably throw you over your handlebars. Then it's a case of learning. It's simple, but it's a complex timing, right? Because if you get your front wheel up and then it already comes back down before you hit the log, then you just run into the log.
Yeah.
If you pull up too late, you run into the log. So it's getting your timing right. And being that most bikes nowadays have suspension forks on them, one of the tricks that works really well is load your suspension fork, like basically with a weight shift forward, like push down on it. And because it's a spring, it's going to bounce back and use that bounce back to help you pop your front wheel off the ground.
So if you're kind of new at it, you see that you've got suspension on your front tire, okay, on your fork. There's also a dial. Is it always on the right side?
It depends on the fork. Some don't even have dials.
So they have dials. You can actually turn it on or turn it off.
Well, you've got a really nice fork. Not everybody has that.
Okay, I'm speaking from ignorance right now. Okay. All right. So with mine, is that I can actually almost dial in how much suspension I want, or is it on or off?
Basically, it's on or off or anywhere in between. It's just a lockout lever.
Got it.
But because it's a air shock, it's got a blow-off valve. So if you have it locked out but hit something hard enough, it'll cycle so it doesn't explode. And then it will lock out again.
Oh, okay. All right. So yeah, practice in a parking lot. When I was riding over logs, I wasn't even pushing down. Like I was just riding over the logs.
Well, but you weren't even pulling up either.
I know.
Like the fact that you pulled that off
and didn't go crashing.
Yes,
the gods were watching me.
Because they're like, I told you to.
Because I protected that turtle the first time around. So karma was, protecting me not to like go flying. Kids too, right?
And they've got smaller wheels.
I know.
Part of the reason you pull it off is you have 29-inch wheels. The bigger the wheel, the easier.
I know,
bigger things
but I've had
over.
the kids, and they're like not. And this is on their other shitty bikes that
they just run right into shit.
Yeah.
And then they wonder why they crash.
But they never did crash.
Oh, they did.
When? On their new bikes?
No, on their old ones. And then Hudson ran into the bridge and got his seat up his ass. Like Amanda and I watched that happen.
Oh.
He didn't try to pull up on the handlebar. He just ran into a square lip like a curb.
Yeah. Well, that was him trying to also get off. I think it was him trying to get off his bike. And because he was in such a position, it just rammed right up his ass.
But it's one of those.
Oh, man, that was painful even me watching that.
Yeah. But if you don't lift your front wheel, eventually there's something big enough that it will just...
Then the bar hit his nuts on another thing. He had a bad beating yesterday. The fact that he still loved that trip. I called it type 2 fun for them. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, practice in the parking lot. Put some logs down, sticks, whatever. But
or even the curbs, because you can work on even just the lines in the parking lot.
That's what I'm talking about,
right? Yeah. Work on like in a parking lot that isn't busy, like It used to be go on Sunday, right? Because nothing was open, but
Yeah.
but it's working on like getting your front wheel off the ground, right? With the right timing.
Getting it off the ground, not only from the pump, but lifting it off the ground.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
but the pop just helps the lift easier.
I never did any of that until this year, till recently.
Even though I told you.
Hey, I can only take in so much.
Hey, I'm just happy that, if you were just running straight into shit, you didn't trash your wheels and you didn't crash.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I said, karma.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, because now I go over the curbs all the time, and I've just noticed a difference when you said to pull it up.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, and even when I go off drops, I do that now.
Yeah.
I'm talking small shit,
Yeah.
right? But it's just a habit I'm getting into. Yeah, I think that, fitness, we talked about in our other podcast. I won't go too much into that at all because we've got a whole podcast on it, but certainly does make a difference. And things that you could do that are quick and easy is like get out on your bike 3 times a week where your heart rate is at, I guess that's an aerobic ride.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing hard, whatever aerobic is for you. In my case, 46 years old. If I do 210 minus 46, anyways, it works out to 120, 130, no more. I do it for about an hour, 3 days a week, and then 1 hard ride.
Yeah.
Something like that. And 1 hard ride is like 2 to 3 hours. My heart rate's usually at 155 for that entire time. And it's fun, right? It's pure joy. But the point is that that'll get you into great shape. It doesn't take you long to get back into riding shape. If you've been out for a month because of other priorities, life, adulting, whatever, and you get back into it, it takes me about, honestly, 2 weeks, maybe, to get back into it, and don't overdo it. Like I did 2 weeks ago. My kids were with their father for 3 weeks. I was like, yay, I can ride my heart out. And one week I rode 2 hard rides at the ends of the week, like one end and then the other end of the week. And in between I rode 6 times.
Yeah.
And they weren't hard at all, but man, did that wear.
It's more volume than you can tolerate.
Plus I worked out. So I had massive back pains. What was that? What parts of my back?
Your lower back.
Yeah, the lower back, but up the spine. What's that called?
Your QL. Your quadrilumbar.
Oh my God.
It's basically the muscle over your kidneys.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Because when you pull on the handlebars, but you're pedaling, you pull evenly on the bar, like you're pulling back with both arms, but you're only pushing down with one leg at a time.
Yeah.
Right? So that muscle is tying everything together.
Yeah.
So it gets a ton of work. And, you went from 3 rides the previous week to 8 rides.
Yeah. And even though, I'm just saying to everybody, even though it felt good,
it was too much.
It was more than my body could handle. And I was sitting there like, why is my back hurting? Like, this is during the day. So I go for a bike ride. I'm like, as you're going up the hill, that's when you feel it, right? I'm like, I think it's from the fucking biking, but I feel good. You think you're working it out, but then you're like, this is straining it. It was so sad. I had to let it go for a couple of days, like a week.
So the tip of this is when you get into it, increase your volume by no more than 10% per week. Right. And your body can adapt to that. But if you jump from, 3 hours to 8 hours.
Yeah.
Your body's going to go.
Does it matter what else you're doing? Like I'm in pretty good shape, like cardio wise and all that. And that's the thing is that my cardio could take it. Like I could do it, but my muscular system could not. Like I was not used to it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Like it's one thing road riding, right? But it's hills. Hills are the muscular part. Like when you have hills, your whole body's involved.
Yeah.
If it's the flat, well, like I could go ride 100 kilometers flat day after day, like if you're not really super pushing the pace or anything.
Yeah.
Because there's not, you might end up with some crotch issues because, you got to acclimatize to the saddle.
Yeah.
You got to, your hands, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of muscular load riding flat terrain unless you're going balls out, like when it's like road riding.
Mm-hmm.
But, when you're, got hills, it's a whole different beast, right? There's more torque on your knees, like more, just stress.
Yeah.
Because the forces involved are higher.
Right. No, for sure. You mentioned just now about I was going to talk. It was
crotch.
Yes, perfect segue. Yeah. I mean, most people who ride already know this, but definitely, even on casual rides, don't ever ride without your padded with your chamois.
Yeah, your padded bike shorts.
Yeah, because you gave me shit for that. And last year, and I didn't even ride the full year, I started building like some kind of a callus down there, like some kind of a hardening. Like the skin wasn't tough, but it was like underneath the skin, it was like a layer of, I actually went to the doctor and asked if there was like a growth going on there. It was negative. Yeah. And of course on your lady bits, this lady like desensitizes shit a little bit, So
and you can get chafing if you're just riding in normal underwear and shorts too. Right?
Yeah,
it's just uncomfortable.
Yeah, I do have chamois cream, which I never use now. Maybe it's because I'm using the bike shorts all the time. Or maybe because I've lost weight. Maybe it's the two.
Yeah, because you got less chafing going on. There's less flesh rubbing against itself.
Yeah.
The other thing too is like it depends on the length of the ride. Like if I'm going long and hard, I'll run chamois cream.
Yeah.
If it's long and easy, like we just did with the kids, I don't worry about it. And if it's short and hard, I don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But if I'm going longer than 2 hours, it's hot and sweaty.
Yeah.
Then yeah, I'll put it on. But it just comes into knowing, like, are you prone to kind of wear and tear down there, like chafing,
right?
Or is it kind of toughened up? And do you have bits that chafe and all that?
And maintenance of your chamois, like you obviously when you wash them, you want to air dry them versus dryer.
Maybe that's what the instructions say. I just throw mine in.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's just because I'm lazy.
Got it. I have. What else I want to talk about? I have an issue, and we're kind of trying to figure this out. I think it's just the positioning of my arm. Like my hands will go numb, right when my elbow's bent.
Yeah, but you run into that going to sleep too in your bed.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know.
I'm going to see the doctor next week.
I don't know how much of it's the bike versus.
Yeah, you're right. But that does raise a point that, see, I had this, like even years ago, after a while, if your hands go numb, you want to move positions, right?
Yep.
And that had nothing to do with what I have now, because now it's pretty consistent. That happens when my elbow's in a certain position, I just lose sensation, which is a real problem when you can't shift, because I got to that point. Anyways, but I just shake it, and so then 2 seconds later, I'm good. But comfort. Talk about that. What are some common issues that people run into when they have a new bike and they think they just have to live through it? But there's ways to fix that. Getting
your seat at the right height, which it's sort of beyond sort of explaining in a podcast, but you want it straight, like basically at the bottom of the pedal stroke, you want roughly a 30-degree bend in your knee. So it's straight-ish, but not locked. Right. Then, generally I find with most people, they benefit from having their seat a little further back. And if that translates into your bar being too far away, then put a shorter stem on. You just might have to buy one and, but a shorter, the stem is what attaches the handlebar to the fork. Right. And they come in a bunch of different lengths. Like Catherine and I ride the same size frame. But she has like a 70 millimeter stem and I have a 110 millimeter stem. I need a longer reach. She needed a shorter reach. So that's sort of how we fit those up. If you find that there's too much weight on your hands, then generally bringing your seat back and down a little bit, and this is assuming your seat's at the right height, will take some pressure off the hands. Getting ergon grips or any kind of anatomically shaped grips, but ergon from Germany are by far my favorite grips. It's what we both have on our bike. You know, they kind of got paddle shapes and they fit the hands really well. And you can get them with bar ends and all sorts of things to give you another hand position. Because bar ends can be nice when you're climbing hills. Move your hands out to the horns. It shifts your weight forward a little bit to keep your front wheel down. And handlebar height. Generally, if your seat and your handlebar are level, like with each other, for a mountain bike, that's fine. You don't need to be super aerodynamic with your handlebar lower than your seat like you would on a road bike, because aerodynamics don't really play much of a role mountain biking. And then beyond that, you know, you can get handlebars with different angles and different widths, and there's all these different pieces that'll come into it. But just know, like, if something isn't comfortable, you know, like if you find something when you're riding on a flat trail that isn't rough, like you don't feel like you experience some sort of discomfort or pain, or when you're riding your bike on technical terrain, like steeper uphills and downhills and corners, it doesn't feel like balanced and in control, then there's something off with your fit, right?
You can shorten your handlebars. You know, they always come in at a larger or wider reach than they need to be. You can always get them cut.
Yeah, because they always come wide because you can always cut bars down, but you can't add to them, right? So, you know, you'll run into that where regardless of the size frame, they'll all come with the same width handlebar, like on a mountain bike.
So you want to go to a bike shop. You know, I know you work at Sale, and you're very knowledgeable, but most places, I don't know.
Yeah.
You probably want to go to a bike shop.
Yeah, like you want to find a bike shop where people who ride. Right. You know, maybe they've got people who fit bikes.
Yeah.
You know, that they understand this stuff. Because it's a whole thing of biomechanics, right? It's setting up your bike ergonomically just like you'd set up your office. You know?
Yeah. It matters.
Yeah.
So I think that's about it.
Yeah, that gets us started. So tips for our mountain biking friends. You know, even if you've been riding for a while, hopefully we've got something in there that was of use to you.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things you run into for anybody who's like getting into fitness, you know, we are big proponents of mountain biking. Partly because there's
pure
always
joy.
Yeah, but there's a benefit that comes from doing, you know, higher intensity work. And one of the cool things with mountain biking is you get that higher intensity work, but you're having fun doing it. So it's not like you're doing repeats on a stair climber in the gym or doing uphill sprints on a treadmill or, you know, just shit that is so boring.
Yeah.
Right? Like I could never work as hard in the gym, like doing cardio as I do.
I know.
Just mountain biking.
That's why I love it. It's like a freebie.
Yeah.
Honestly. And for us, like when we go mountain biking for 2-3 hours, that's not working. As much as we train and we work out, that's not even working out. That's just fun.
Yeah. Although it's the hardest workout we do.
I know.
You know, like just from the stats as far as heart rate and everything goes.
Yeah.
The mountain biking is the hardest cardiovascular
It's so
thing
rewarding.
we do, but you're just having fun doing it.
Yeah.
Like I have no problem pushing myself because I don't want to walk up that hill. right? It's the challenge of, can I make it up without walking, right?
Right.
That steep technical hill.
Yeah.
And so like, I'm just focused on that. And then when I look at my numbers afterwards, it's like, oh, my heart rate got up to 174.
And I'm always amazed if it's not terribly steep, but if it's just a hill, how much lower my heart rate is riding up it versus walking, pushing a bike. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So you're always better off on your bike anyways. But just going back to the whole improvement of my riding this past year, I think that I just forgot. I need some nootropics.
Yeah. Because your body's really fit, but your brain's not working very well.
No. No, there was something I was going to say around, when we went back to Hydrocut and how I was on the blacks with you. Are they black diamonds or just black trails?
Black diamonds.
Black diamonds. Okay. Same like skiing. Yeah. And, even doing the steep whoopie doos, like the valleys and coming back up. I used to be afraid of that. I think, what was I going to say? I can't remember. Anyway.
You're a better rider this year than you were last year.
I was.
Yeah.
I am. Yeah, I am. And it's pretty cool. It's practice is definitely key. And I think definitely trying hard things. Don't limit yourself, right? Go do a black trail. Don't be intimidated by it. Generally, they have the out. Like you can always do something easier. You don't have to do the jumps or the drops, whatever. But you can always see them and experience something. You'll probably take away something. And besides which, if you're looking at a drop or jump, you're like, oh, I could have done that. Well, now you know what it looks like. Go back and do it.
Yeah.
Right? Just back up. And definitely just that practice and has really helped me because a lot of it was fear,
But it's fear of the unknown, and the more trails you ride.
Oh, I'm so comfortable now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was going down things that were steep, not knowing how to handle them, right?
Yeah.
And how to drop and go over routes and will I go faster? And now I'm super comfortable. Now I'm just more worried about my kids and just watching them. Right? I hope they're okay. And they're like,
yeah, because you tell them something like 20 times, and then it's like.
Honestly, when I saw Hudson go down a hill and there was like that steep embankment, I'm like, oh. Because I noticed we were riding on the escarpment, right? And there's a bit of a bush. I mean, if they fall, they probably won't fall over, but if they do fall over, it's like pretty.
Oh, you mean like when we're down a water down?
That, yeah. But even, yeah. Oh, yeah. Totally.
Yeah, the trail wasn't right near the edge, though.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. But that used to make me nervous.
Yeah.
Right. Now it's more like my kids, like, hopefully they're not going to do something stupid. But when we were in Fanshawe yesterday, I just know that we were, that one hill that it looks like it's like all gravel and it's like a drop on the other side. I don't know. I didn't even look. When Hudson's like, I don't even think we should go here. I'm like, oh, that'll be fun. This is like an adventure. But we were going down some bends that were going down and around, and I'm fine with that. But then I just look at Hudson. I'm like, how in control are you really? So that makes me nervous. It's not even my riding. It's me watching my kids do something. And honestly, sometimes they just do it naively, or I think they are a little bit. Or maybe I'm just overthinking it, which is probably what it is.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. But I just don't always know if they're truthfully in control. That's my thing with them.
Yeah, I find Amanda,
yes. Hudson, I question.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think he just gets around a corner because he just got lucky.
Yeah, like because all the things we've told him, he doesn't do. He doesn't put his pedal down, going around corners.
He's getting better. But just gotta minimize the risk.
Yeah.
Anyways,
nerf him up.
Yeah. All right, guys. You have any questions for us? Let us know. But in the meantime, work hard.
Play dirty.
Bye.